The rain fell like silver needles on Mount Auburn Cemetery, each drop another wound on Ryan Donovan's already shattered heart. At 15, he stood alone, clutching his mother's worn journal to his chest, watching as they lowered Sarah Donovan's casket into the unforgiving Massachusetts earth. No one noticed how his shoulders trembled beneath his too large black coat, or how his knuckles whitened around the leather-bound book, his last connection to her. The Victorian house in Beacon Hill awaited his return, but it no longer felt like home. His stepfather, Richard Blackwell, Harvard professor and pillar of Boston society, had barely spoken during the funeral. The silence between them stretched wider than the Charles River. That night, as Ryan sat on his bed staring at his mother's photograph, the sound of rummaging came from her study. Richard was going through her things. Too soon, too cold, too final. "What is this?" The voice sliced through the quiet house. Ryan found Richard in the doorway of his bedroom, holding Ryan's private journal, pages splayed open like exposed nerves. "You wrote about feelings for another boy. For this?" Mason, Ryan's world collapsed in slow motion. The journal, his sanctuary, violated and judged. "Your mother coddled you." Richard spat, his academics' vocabulary failing him as disgust twisted his features. "I will not have this perversion under my roof." Within hours, Ryan's belongings were stuffed into a suitcase and thrown onto the snow-dusted steps of their Beacon Hill home. The door slammed with the finality of a judge's gavel. Through the frosted glass, he watched Richard's silhouette retreat, Faneuil Hall's distant lights shimmering through his tears. "You are no longer welcome here," were Richard's parting words, standing in the biting Boston wind. Ryan remembered his mother's final whisper, weeks before cancer claimed her. "You're my greatest gift, Ryan. Never let the world dim your light." He'd promised her he would stay strong, but how cast out into the winter with nowhere to go, no family left to call his own. That night, Ryan slept on a bench in Boston Common, his mother's journal tucked inside his coat, close to his heart. Snow began to fall, covering the city in a deceptive blanket of purity, while underneath a boy struggled to survive both grief and rejection. This is just the beginning of Ryan's journey from abandoned to accepted, from broken to rebuilt. Follow Heart Stories for more tales of resilience, courage, and the families we choose when the ones we're born into fail us. Boston's December winds cut through Ryan's thin jacket as he wandered from Back Bay to Copley Square, his body growing thinner with each passing day. The Grand Public Library became his daytime sanctuary, warm air and quiet corners where no one questioned a teenager with a backpack. At night, he hid behind dumpsters near Quincy Market, scavenging food the tourists discarded. His Converse sneakers, once white, turned gray, then black with city grime. His face, once bright with life, hollowed. The journal remained his only treasure, pages filled with his mother's handwriting, becoming a map to a home that no longer existed. On particularly brutal nights, Ryan would stand outside the Berklee College of Music, ears pressed against walls to catch fragments of melodies escaping practice rooms. Music had always been his secret passion, something his stepfather had dismissed as frivolous, but his mother had encouraged. He would close his eyes, letting piano notes or guitar strums carry him away from hunger and cold. "Do you play Boston?" a student asked one evening, catching Ryan listening. "No," he lied, though his fingers ached to touch keys, to create something beautiful in this ugly situation. You've got that look like music's already inside you." The student left. Ryan stayed, shivering. 3 weeks after being cast out, a nor'easter hit Boston. Temperatures plummeted below freezing as blizzard conditions engulfed the city. Desperate, Ryan huddled under the shallow overhang of Symphony Hall, his body convulsing with cold, his thoughts becoming as numb as his fingertips. A black Tesla slowed nearby, its electric hum barely audible over the howling wind. The window lowered, revealing a man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes creased with concern. "Kid, you'll freeze to death out here, the man said, his voice deep but gentle. I'm Alexander West. Ryan recognized the name vaguely, founder of Harmony Stream, a music software company. He'd seen his face in the tech magazines in the library. I'm fine, Ryan mumbled through chattering teeth. Alexander stepped out, snow immediately clinging to his expensive wool coat. Without hesitation, he removed it and wrapped it around Ryan's shoulders. I know that look, Alexander said quietly. I wore it myself once, 25 years ago, right here in Boston. Something in Alexander's eyes, a shared wound, a familiar scar, made Ryan hesitate before running. My parents threw me out when they found out I was gay, Alexander continued. Spent months on these same streets before a music teacher found me, brought me in. Ryan's defenses cracked. Tears formed, then froze on his cheeks. I have a guest room, Alexander said. Warm food, no questions you don't want to answer. The car's interior was warm, the leather seats softer than anything Ryan had felt in weeks. As they drove across the city toward Cambridge, Ryan clutched his backpack tightly, expecting this kindness to be revoked at any moment. Alexander's riverside home felt impossibly safe, windows overlooking the Charles, walls lined with records and books, a baby grand piano in the corner. Ryan ate tomato soup and grilled cheese with shaking hands, waiting for the catch. My nephew Justin lived with me before his accident last year, Alexander explained, showing Ryan to a bedroom. He was about your age, also loved music. That night, clean for the first time in weeks, Ryan slept in a real bed. He dreamed of his mother, of pianos, and of Alexander, a stranger whose eyes somehow felt like coming home. Cambridge mornings glowed differently than Boston's. From his bedroom window in Alexander's home, Ryan watched sunrise paint the Charles River gold, a beauty that seemed impossible after the darkness he'd endured. His room, Justin's room, still held traces of its previous occupant: music posters, guitar stands, vinyl records organized alphabetically. For the first week, Ryan barely spoke. He showered, ate what Alexander prepared, and returned to his room, waiting for this shelter to crumble. Alexander never pushed, never questioned. He simply existed in the same space, creating a steady rhythm of normalcy around Ryan's chaos. One evening, while Alexander worked in his home studio, Ryan opened his mother's journal, flipping through pages of her elegant handwriting. A folded paper fluttered out, an envelope he'd never noticed, addressed to him in his mother's hand. With trembling fingers, he broke the seal. My dearest Ryan, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone. There's so much I need you to know. First, that I've always known who you are, all of you, and love every part. Your heart, your creativity, your gentle spirit, and yes, who you love. None of this changes my love for you. The letter continued, revealing she had suspected Richard would reject him. She apologized for not protecting him better, for not confronting Richard's bigotry while she could. The final paragraph mentioned a friend named Alex who would understand, who would help if Ryan ever needed it. Alex. Alexander. Ryan found Alexander in his studio, the letter clutched in his hand. You knew my mom. Alexander nodded slowly. Sarah and I worked together at the Boston Music Foundation years ago. She helped me when I was just starting my company. We kept in touch. Did she ask you to find me? She made me promise to look for you if anything happened. I've been searching since her funeral. That night, something broke and healed simultaneously within Ryan. He cried for hours for his mother, for himself, for the connection that transcended death. Alexander sat beside him, not touching, just present. Spring arrived, bringing new beginnings. Ryan enrolled at Phillips Academy, Andover, commuting from Alexander's home. The prestigious school was intimidating, but Alexander had pulled strings, convincing them of Ryan's musical potential. On his first day, Ryan met Mei Jiang, fierce, brilliant, and unafraid. When a group of boys whispered charity cases, Ryan passed. Mei confronted them with a sharp tongue and sharper wit. Ignore those trust fund robots, she told him afterward. They're just jealous because you actually have talent. Mei became his first real friend. her family's Thanksgiving dinner, his first taste of belonging since his mother's death. Around the Zhang's crowded table, with Alexander beside him and May's family treating him like one of their own, Ryan realized families could be chosen, created from compassion rather than blood. That night, Ryan sat at Alexander's piano for the first time, fingers hesitantly finding the melody of his mother's favorite song. Alexander watched silently from the doorway, eyes glistening with pride and sorrow for all Ryan had endured to reach this moment of quiet courage. Spring blossomed across Boston Common as Ryan's life settled into a rhythm of school, music, and healing. Alexander had become more than a guardian, he was a mentor, teaching Ryan about music production in his home studio on weekends. The legal petition for permanent guardianship was moving through Suffolk County courts, promising stability Ryan barely dared believe in. Then Richard Blackwell reappeared. Ryan spotted him first standing at the Phillips Academy gates one afternoon, his academics' posture rigid with purpose. May noticed Ryan freeze. "That's him, your stepfather," she whispered. Ryan nodded, unable to speak. "Want me to accidentally spill my entire iced coffee on his pretentious blazer?" May offered, half serious. But Richard had already seen them. He approached with measured steps, as if navigating hazardous terrain. "Ryan," he said stiffly, "I need to speak with you, privately." In the school's courtyard, Richard didn't apologize. Instead, he spoke of appearances, of social services investigating why a minor was living with no blood relation, of Boston society talking about Alexander's inappropriate interest in Ryan. "I'm prepared to withdraw my objection to your lifestyle choices," Richard said, the words clearly rehearsed. "You can return home. It's what your mother would have wanted. Don't speak for her." Ryan's voice surprised even himself with its steadiness. "You threw me out in winter. You called me perversion. There's a substantial trust fund," Richard continued, ignoring Ryan's words. "Your mother's money, accessible when you're 18. Until then, I'm the trustee." The truth emerged like poison. Richard needed to maintain guardianship to control Sarah's money. Alexander's petition threatened that control. That evening, Alexander listened calmly as Ryan recounted the encounter. "He'll fight the guardianship petition," Alexander warned on. "Are you prepared for that?" Ryan thought of his mother's letter, of Alexander's quiet support, of May's fierce friendship, of the Boston LGBT Youth Center, where he'd started volunteering, meeting others like Lucas, who'd been thrown out at 16 and now counseled younger kids. "I'm done hiding," Ryan answered. "I'm done being ashamed." The court hearing arrived during a perfect June day. The Suffolk County Family Court buzzed with tension as Richard's expensive attorney painted Alexander as an unrelated man with suspicious motives, questioning why someone so successful would take in a teenage boy. When Ryan's turn to speak came, his voice wavered only once. "My mother trusted Alexander," he said, looking directly at the judge. "Before she died, she asked him to look after me because she knew what Richard would do if he discovered I was gay." Richard's face reddened. "Alexander gave me shelter when my stepfather threw me out. He enrolled me in school when my stepfather didn't look for me. He helped me grieve my mother when my stepfather was emptying her closets days after her funeral." The judge, a woman with silver-framed glasses and thoughtful eyes, asked Alexander a simple question. "Why are you doing this, Mr. West truly?" Alexander looked at Ryan before answering. "Because 25 years ago, I was him. Thrown away for being gay, living on Boston streets until someone saw me as a person. Not a problem. I can't undo that pain, but I can make sure it stops with him." 2 weeks later, the guardianship was granted. Ryan officially had a home, a guardian, and a future. That summer, Ryan composed his first complete song, Scattered Pages, dedicated to his mother. Alexander recorded it professionally in his studio, and when Ryan heard his own voice played back, something unlocked in his chest, not just talent, but purpose. The Boston summer faded into a symphony of seasons, 6 years passing in a blur of growth and transformation. Ryan Donovan, now 21, adjusted his guitar strap as he prepared to take the stage at Club Passam in Harvard Square. The intimate venue buzzed with conversation and anticipation. 6 years since a snowstorm. 6 years since Alexander found him. 6 years of building a life from fragments of the old and materials of the new. "Ready?" Alexander asked, giving Ryan's shoulder a squeeze. At 45, Alexander's hair had more silver than pepper now, but his eyes still carried the same kindness that had saved Ryan's life. "Born ready?" Ryan smiled, a confident echo of the boy who once trembled on Boston streets. The crowd hushed as Ryan stepped into the spotlight. His indie folk sound had garnered attention across New England, his songs of loss and finding home resonating with listeners who'd never known his story but somehow felt its truth. "This next song is called Foundations," Ryan announced. "For the man who taught me that family isn't always blood, sometimes it's who stops when everyone else walks past." Alexander watched from the side, chest swelling with quiet pride. The foundation they'd built together was solid now, Ryan excelling at Berklee College of Music while building his performance career. Alexander's software company thriving, their Cambridge home filled with music and stability. The Sarah's Notes Foundation they'd created together had already helped dozens of LGBTQ+ youth rejected by their families. The old Victorian in Cambridge's Avon Hill neighborhood now served as a safe house and music therapy center, staffed by professionals and volunteers who understood abandonment's unique wounds. After the show, as they packed Ryan's equipment into Alexander's Tesla, a familiar figure approached Richard Blackwell, older and somehow smaller than Ryan remembered. "I saw the announcement in the Globe," Richard said stiffly. "Your foundation? The benefit concert?" Ryan stood straighter, no longer the frightened boy from Beacon Hill. "Did you come to object to that too?" Richard's academic posture faltered. "I came to observe. Your mother would be..." He paused, surprising both of them with what seemed like genuine emotion. "She would be proud." Ryan didn't offer forgiveness. Some bridges remained broken by design. But as Richard walked away, Ryan felt the last weight lift from his shoulders. He no longer needed Richard's approval or understanding. 2 weeks later, the Lighthouse opened officially a residential school for LGBTQ+ teens rejected by their families. The main building, designed to resemble Ryan and Sarah's old Beacon Hill home, stood as a beacon on the Massachusetts coast. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Ryan read from his mother's journal, "Love doesn't depend on who we are, but on our courage to stand beside each other when the world turns away." Alexander sat front row, eyes shining with pride as the boy he'd once found freezing on Boston streets now offered warmth to others cast into similar storms. What invisible thread connects your life to someone else's? Who stopped for you when others walked past? Share your story of unexpected connection in the comments below. For more journeys of resilience, acceptance, and chosen family, subscribe to Heart Stories, where every broken path leads somewhere beautiful.